Welcome to session 4. We have Moiyez Buksh who's a BIM manager from DKO. Now, in all of our BIM implementation stories, normally we have everyone, creating the process, rolling it out across the company, and it's hit and miss about the quality of the standard of how training is rolled out. How do people monitor their training? How are people tracking and making sure that staff are actually at the skill sets that they require so that your business has the capacity and capabilities it needs to deliver for your clients, like we saw previously in a session with Carl. So in this session, you're going to learn a lot about how you can kind of apply a process over managing your training. So take it away, Moiyez.
Thanks, Nathan. Hi, everyone. My name is Moiyez Buksh, and I'm the National BIM Manager at DKO Architecture. Today, my intention is to share our approach to staff training. We will be looking at different ways to view training so it's more meaningful and successful, and also look at reporting and data extraction so you can quantify your training program. We would firstly like to thank our partners who collaborate with us, including Graphisoft, Green Dragon Technologies, and Central Innovation. Thank you all for your support. Now, a little bit about us. DKO was established in the year 2000 and has grown from a small team to a practice of over 200 design professionals. We are a global company with offices around Australia and in New Zealand and Southeast Asia. At DKO, we strive for high-quality architecture that serves people, respects place, and stands the test of time, so we can deliver sharp, intelligent, and articulated design. We work on a range of projects, from bespoke homes to distinctive residential communities and luxury hotels. Our team also works on unique hospitality and workplace interiors, urban design, and large-scale master planning. I would like to introduce our BIM team, who have been instrumental in developing and delivering training across our offices. Director Raymond Ma and Nick Byrne have provided invaluable guidance and mentorship to our team. I would also like to introduce Josh Bull and Min Nguyen, who form our core BIM team. Their hard work and support to our staff has led us to excellence in BIM deliverables on some of our key projects. To start off, I would like to play a short video on what our brain cells are doing when we are learning something new. Now, I apologize if this grosses out some people, but just be a second. Cells are reaching out to find connections. All we need to do is put the information in front of our eyes. This is something I like to keep in mind when I engage in learning for myself or when I'm training people in ArchiCAD or architecture. When the word training is thrown out there, we think upskilling, and the assumption is that if somebody does the training, that person will be transformed into a super user in a matter of days. However, this process is a little more involved with factors that will affect the final result. Each architectural office has a unique purpose and paradigm it works within. This influences the workflow implemented for their output. This is what makes your company unique. And because of this, you will need some training for anyone who joins your team, regardless of their BIM software background. Even if people join us with an ArchiCAD background, there are variations in the way they model or set up files and produce outputs. This makes training incumbent on all new staff. So training is not primarily for upskilling, but firstly to induct new staff into your company's workflows. In addition to learning the skills, it's an opportunity to instill the necessary vision and work ethic you want from your team. At DKO, training is not just top-down. We recognize that everyone who joins our team has skills and experiences different to our own. We ensure that learning is a two-way street, and we learn from our team members, which allow us to continually improve our approach and content. In-house training versus outsourcing. So where should the training come from? In-house training will always be more beneficial because training is more than just theory. This doesn't mean you can't utilize and outsource parts of your training, but there should be a strong component that comes from within your organization. And we'll talk about the different forms this can take on later on. If you outsource your training, you can expect it to be largely theoretical, and it will be disconnected from the systems in your company. They will understand the fundamental principles, but might have some rather wild workflows that can be destructive to the systems you have built over time. There is a place for outsourcing some of the training. Any new employee will fall into one of the following training categories. Either they'll have no ArchiCAD background, low to intermediate ArchiCAD knowledge, or advanced ArchiCAD knowledge. For someone who has no ArchiCAD background, outsourcing basic training on the software will be beneficial. This will bring them up to speed with navigation, tools, terminology, basic modeling, workflows, and basic documentation workflows. You will ultimately save time and resources in-house. Once the new staff member has finished the course, they can jump straight into workflow-specific training required for projects. We have tried both, so if you're interested in our experiences, please ask in the Q&A. There's a common discussion which takes place when training is brought up, and that is, why can't they just learn as they work? Although this is a valid point of view, this approach can cause anxiety, stress, long hours, and sometimes even verbal abuse to the trainee or to the new staff member. I can understand why this is always asked. We hired somebody to fulfill a resource, and that resource is required right now. Completely understand. However, we need to start reevaluating this approach and consider the hidden losses in costs that won't show up until later on. At a bare minimum, we're trying to reduce time spent on mistake correction from workers who don't know your system yet. This will then inevitably save us money, and we have to remember that this is more than just about delivering an output. Especially as we move more into a BIM-driven environment, files need to be maintained and worked on holistically from a BIM deliverables perspective. So how can we strike a balance? The best approach, in my opinion, is to start any project work after some intensive training. How much time to allow will depend on the availability of resources to run the training and also the project resourcing needs as well. Once a new staff member has finished the training, they're equipped to receive instructions relating to ArchiCAD related workflows because they understand the terminology. They know how to achieve the required outputs because they can navigate the files, and they have hands-on resources to troubleshoot challenges they run into because they've developed a relationship with the trainers from day one. I've often received questions from trainees regarding their project work, which helps take some of the pressure off the project team. I'm able to provide a quick answer to help them get through their deadlines. So how to fit training into your business? I'm just going to take a quick survey. So if you could put your answers in the chat. What is your practices culture? Are you more of a teaching practice or more of a production, or have more of a production line setup? Now, if you could avoid saying both and think a little deeper, we'll go over the results during the Q&A session. We have discussed why it's important to implement training. So now let's get a little bit deeper into what are some factors to consider for your business when trying to implement it. Training someone by putting them directly onto a project can seem efficient on the surface because at least you have somebody progressing drawings. But the question is, are we really gaining time or saving time? Let's look at some generic numbers. Now, I understand I've made a lot of assumptions here, which we can discuss later on. But for the sake of argument, just to visualize my thought process, I'm going to pose the following. Let's take two constants. Questions that a new staff member is going to ask may take around 15 minutes to answer. And the time that it takes them to fix a mistake will take around 30 minutes. Now, considering a project stage that needs to run for about 4 weeks, I have assumed that someone starting on a project without any prior training will be asking around 5 questions a day, and they will need to fix maybe 2 mistakes per day, which will reduce, and these numbers will reduce as the weeks go on. As you can see, there is an average of about 51% increase in time required to finish that stage. Now let's contrast this with someone who has gone through training prior to joining a project. Now this person will naturally have less questions starting off. And in addition to this, some of their questions will be redirected to the trainer or resources that they use during their training, freeing up time for the project lead to do their own work. In the second scenario, the average increase in time is significantly lower at only 36%. Now, I know this was an oversimplified comparison, but the point remains that there is a time saving when it comes to training new staff before they start on project work, both from a knowledge perspective and also from a support perspective that they have established prior to starting their projects. To start implementation, you'll need to consider the following factors: what type of business you are, who is most suited to run and develop training and content creation in your firm. Will you be outsourcing all or part of your training? And how much time should you allow for training, which we're going to talk about a little later on. Once you have these points answered, you would have taken the first steps to implementing training for all your staff in your company. Quantifying and reporting. So how long should it take? Resourcing is always difficult, and providing a trainer is no different. Someone will need to spend time with new staff, get them up to speed with how things are done, and how to use the tools and workflows that are established in your business. If you are setting this up for the first time, the trainer will be involved with 3 main areas: running the training itself, creating the course content, tracking and reporting the progress. This will consume on average about 5 to 6 hours of their time per week for about 1 to 2 months. The development of the content should be created as the sessions are run. This is done with a combination of recording the sessions on Zoom or Teams, and then also writing a transcript or detailed notes of what you're going to be teaching. This will start to create the training course, which people can do semi-autonomously. Once this content is created, new staff will be able to use these resources for their training, which will reduce the time required by the trainer to be present. This is a snapshot of the video library that we've created, which trainees use to complete their courses. And this is step 1. Following this, we're going to be looking at assessment. An experienced Archicad user can quite quickly and easily assess a person's competency with a short 20-minute conversation. These conversations should be used to determine what level of training a new staff member should participate in, and also how much they have learned after the training is complete. I like to make a distinction between good memory and internalized knowledge. A trainee will be far more productive if they understand the process and reason behind each workflow deeply. After a trainee has completed a section by watching the videos and doing the exercises, the trainee does a self-assessment, then books in a review a week later. This will let the trainer know if the trainee has internalized the workflow, and this can only come from repetitive practice of the exercise you have set up, or exercises you have set up. The assessment approach we have adopted or developed is a combination of explanation and demonstration. Now, I have to remind myself and you guys that this is not a school that we've set up. We are trainers for your company and should have a vested interest in the success of each staff member. Therefore, our assessment of them should be encouraging and looking beyond the answers itself. There are two things I like to consider during the review. If they, number one, if they can explain the process but can't demonstrate it, tells me that the trainee hasn't practiced the process but memorized the theory. And secondly, if they can demonstrate the process but can't quite explain it back to me, it tells me that the trainee is comfortable with the process but might have difficulty with new terminology. Which can also have some implications on their work, but we can work on that. An example I like to use is to ask somebody when reviewing them is to ask somebody how to model a single plane roof. This example requires a trainee to explain and demonstrate where the roof tool is, or the tools palette is, the understanding of the settings and how to swap between a single plane roof and a hipped roof, know the meaning of the 3 different clicks required to model a roof, and also understand its appearance in 2D and 3D. This sets up the base level to assess the trainee through the other sections. The critical thing is being able to put a score against each answer, and this is where the marking criteria comes into play. Based on what we've already discussed, I like to mark on the following bases. Number 1 being the highest marks, and number 5 being 0. So my marking criteria is if somebody can answer confidently and can demonstrate that task, or if they can demonstrate that task confidently without hesitation, but maybe can't answer it, can demonstrate but needs to think about it, convey generic or shallow knowledge on the concept, or can't convey anything at all. The follow-up assessment is essential to a trainee's growth. Trainers should have a mindset of being invested in the people they're training. By doing this, you are creating a culture of support and development. By the 1-month period, you should talk to the supervisor and get an estimation on the staff member's performance. This will prepare you for their review. The purpose of the review is to see where the new staff is struggling and where additional training might be needed. This will predominantly be based on the type of work they have been given. These reviews are more conversational. With some demonstrations, you may ask them about or clarify some of the workflows that they may ask you about. You should also make it a point to get a good understanding of the areas a staff member is having difficulty. This may not always be tied to how to use the tools or the software, but more about why we do certain things, or architectural knowledge which they may be lacking. And then that gives you a basis to then help them fill those gaps of knowledge. This leads me on to the next point, which is mentorship. In the first instance, the trainer plays a mentor role with the new staff who are participating in the training programs. But following this, the project lead needs to be developed and provide this mentorship. This is critical to the success of a staff member who might be fresh to ArchiCAD or even fresh to architecture entirely. The mentor should be someone that the trainees aim to impress or look to emulate. And this comes first by the mentor themselves showing that they have a vested interest in the growth and development of their team. Now, a quick recap on where we are with our journey. We've established we need training and how to implement it. We've established our course and how to create content. We've developed the correct mindset to train new staff members. We have a marking criteria to assess their progress. We have a mentor system set up to support staff going through the training and development. So now, what parts of the process do we need to report, and what purpose will it serve? This answer will vary from company to company, so I'll be talking about it from our paradigm. Some of the data we extract from our training matrix include how many staff have been through our training program, what software did they use previously, which tells us what should we be looking for in our employment strategy, how long did it take them to finish, which tells us some of the factors that affect trainee success, and who excelled in the course, which which tells us what sort of criteria we can apply to find good employees. Now, to be able to extract this data, you need to get into the habit of putting everything into a database. We typically use Excel because I find this the most flexible. If this is already done by a HR team, then half your work is already done. But if not, then I encourage you to set one up and put all the information that is relevant to an employee from a training perspective. In the middle is an example of the database we've set up, and on the right is the data we've extracted from that in graph form, which we use to present to our directors or even assess how our training is going. All right, story time. Positive and negative case studies. Training has taken several forms over the years. Given that we have several offices, Zoom has always been part of our training mix. During COVID, it became the primary method of connecting and delivering training to our team. Our approach is that of a positive and safe environment to learn. The power and direction is given to the trainees, and every question is given importance so that they feel they are contributing to their own growth as opposed to just being fed information. However, this doesn't always go to plan, and this is when your mettle is tested. So what it looks like when it goes well. The majority of the team members we have taught have been wonderful. They're enthusiastic after the introduction session and put their mind and heart into the course. Every member is encouraged to ask questions outside of our regular meetings, and those questions take priority so a supportive environment is created. Team members who utilize the full duration of the course have shown to perform better in the review and with their teams because they're taking the time and they're repeating and practicing every exercise properly. Staff who ask a lot of questions is a good thing because it shows engagement with the material. Ideally, each session they attend, they are coming loaded with project questions related to the work that they're doing, which allows other members to learn from those questions as well. As we develop our course, one of our trainees put together a glossary of the resources we provided so that other members can find these answers easier. This was a proud moment for me to see someone take such initiative and to actually invest in the training program and give back to the training program that they were actually part of. Another thing we found is that Revit users are just as passionate about Revit as we are about ArchiCAD. So winning over an ex-Revit user is particularly satisfying as well. It's important to understand why some training experiences hasn't been as positive, and we take those rare cases seriously to look at our process and content to make adjustments. One underlying factor which can affect someone's success in training is buy-in. If they're not committed to the cause, then training will become a more timely task than originally expected. If the staff member doesn't have buy-in, then you will find you are spending more time convincing and proving as opposed to demonstrating and explaining. Don't get me wrong, everything you teach must be grounded in sound logical principles, but these principles need to be explained only once, and then so that everybody can internalize it and move on. As I alluded before, when you encounter a person who is asking a lot of questions, which you've explained several times, it can be an indication that there's something else going on. Some of the common reasons we have seen include they've been given very limited time by their supervisors, they're not spending enough time practicing, or they don't even attend the training sessions to learn off the other trainees. Another red flag is if somebody continues to compare everything back to their previous software they were using. One of the strongest lessons which propelled me into ArchiCAD was being told, forget the old software I was taught. Now, of course, I didn't mean this literally, but it helped me to take down the barriers in my mind, which were telling me, if ArchiCAD doesn't do it like Revit, for example, then there's a deficiency in ArchiCAD itself. Once I stopped the comparison in my own mind and embraced the new way of doing things, I then saw the logic and overall system that was built into each feature of ArchiCAD. We also had one staff member who finished our 4-week course in 3 days. Now I was impressed and thought there was a lot of commitment. However, upon the review process, we discovered that they did not internalize any of that knowledge. As ArchiCAD users, we know how important the process is, and not following that process can have a detrimental impact on the project, which is why internalizing these lessons is fundamental. Now, can you guarantee outcome? When establishing a training system, it's important to focus on what you are teaching and the purpose behind it. Our job as trainers is to guarantee the content is comprehensive and robust and covers all the areas required for your process. It is also important to guarantee that you, as a trainer, have made the time to support all trainees with questions and resources for them to learn. And lastly, it's important that the course is being reviewed and updated to ensure it's relevant to the versions of ArchiCAD you're using and the systems that you have recently implemented. The remaining part of the formula is for the trainee to guarantee if they are embracing the software and the systems and the workflows built around it. Are they attending the training sessions? Are they spending time doing the exercises? And are they applying what was taught and asking questions relevant to their work? If all of these things are met, then you will see outcomes appear in an upwards trajectory. Never forget we're dealing with people who are all unique in their own way. Focus on celebrating their strengths and building up their weaknesses to have a strong team. Now, our training matrix and what we deliver. Our training matrix takes on a few different forms, which has been developed over several years. This is to cater for the different teams and resourcing requirements that we have. ArchiCAD Fundamentals. The 4-week Fundamentals training system kicked off our training course and created a lot of the content we use for our staff today. This course requires 2 hours per day for the trainee to spend in the training catch-ups and practicing, and then 3 hours a week for the trainer to actually run through questions and reviews. The next we have the ArchiCAD Intensive 3-day course, and this is basically a condensed version of the 4 weeks fundamental course run over 3 days. This requires the trainees to attend a 6 hour per day training session with breaks obviously, and 3 hours a day for the trainees to trainers time to actually run through the course and then reviews and answering questions. In addition to that, we also have an advanced ArchiCAD monthly training program. Now this is a session that I run myself with our model manager group once a month per office. This is where I'm talking to the ArchiCAD power users in our office and showing them advanced file management, library and attribute management and workflows. In addition to this, we have our supplementary training sessions, which happens once a quarter and includes topics like visualization, workflows, and then new versions of ArchiCAD, which happens once a year. These sessions are typically accompanied by a guide note, which we create and is available for everybody to use as a reference. And there you have it. This holistic approach will help you develop a robust training system that caters for your business, quantifies the results, and continually adds value to your team by upskilling each team member. Thanks for coming and attending and listening. And Nathan, I'll hand it back to you.